Real Investment Show.
If you're fortunate enough and your parents are still alive, your older parents, I encourage you to go to olderadultnestegg.com. This is a great site. So I want you to understand, 1 out of every 20 older adults in the U.S. is a victim of financial exploitation, losing an average of $80,000 to $186,000. Nearly half of these crimes are committed by someone the older adult knows and trusts, like a caregiver or a relative. So it's critical that we protect our older adults from financial exploitation. And this site, olderadultnestegg.com, this is created by Dr. Peter Lichtenberg. They have worked over a decade to try to prevent financial exploitation and reduce its impact on older adults. They have an interview, rating, and self-assessment system that helps review financial decisions made by older adults. It's these tools, there's training and tools for professionals. I've gone through it to give an assessment test. Caregivers, children, even older adults who make financial decisions and are independent should look to these tests and get their scores and understand where there might be some pitfalls in their rationale of thinking. So this whole website is designed to protect older adults from undue influence, financial mismanagement, and fraud. I have had situations, Danny, over the last decade at least, where I can pick up on these when grandparents are talking about how their grandchildren want a house and they're going to help their grandchildren buy this house, even though the grandchild, I know, is a schlub and is not going to pay the mortgage. And they don't understand the repercussions. They just want to do something good for their family members. And sometimes we have to come in as the bad guys and protect those individuals. Or you have children and parents that live in different states and they're not really getting a full handle on the caregivers coming in and maybe the financial decisions and how they're being confided in. This website can help these family members detect issues while they're occurring, or most importantly, before.
Yeah, this is a huge problem. And I get the point of, we have many clients that say, I want to help my children or grandchildren while I'm alive. I want to give them funds now versus later. I want to see them enjoy it, and that's fine. But you need to understand all the ins and outs. And like you mentioned, the financial repercussions can be significant. So we talked to a lot of families about not mortgaging their retirement for their kids' education. And granted, I know everybody wants to help their children, and ideally, I get it. I understand. But this, especially with elders, we find this happening more and more. And not just that. I mean, that's just one, and that's probably a more innocent example of what really goes on. Because a lot of the times what we're seeing is people are getting doxed. They're getting scammed in so many different ways. I mean, I shared with you this morning a friend of ours she's a doctor at 40 years old who was about this close to getting scammed yesterday.
Yeah, I read that. That was pretty scary.
I mean, that is extremely scary.
So think about that. A doctor, 40 years old, smart, gets pulled into this elaborate scheme, and it looks like she was saved for not making that decision. So imagine if you're mentally compromised. So what this older adult nest egg site does, it allows you, say you are a professional, you're an attorney, you're a financial planner, you're a psychologist, you're a banker, insurance agent, accountant, whatever. You can get certified to give this brief 10-item interview that examines one specific financial decision made by an older adult to assess his or her financial judgment vulnerability to theft and scams, and whether financial predation has taken place. It's a scoring system created by Dr. Lichtenberg. And there's one there for family and friends. A family and friends questionnaire, 14 questions, multiple choice questions. It can be taken again. If my parents were still alive and independent, I would go through these capacity tools. You have a lot of family members using these, a lot of elder adults. This is all free, Danny. These resources that are on this website are free. So when I talked yesterday, I talked to an adult son who lives out of state. His mom lives out of state. She lives independently. She writes a lot of checks. I'll go through her account a lot of times to see what checks she's writing, see if there's anything unusual. But I called him yesterday to talk about this website and said, hey, I think your mom's making good decisions, but why don't you just go through some of this with her? And he's never heard of this website. So I think, again, it's a hidden gem. I heard about it from I went to a sort of this big party we had. They had a party, and it was a financial party. There was a gathering, and there was discussion from this gentleman who was an estate planning attorney, and he brought this site up. And we just started talking, and I picked his brain, and I said, he says, really, check this out. And I said, I've never heard of this, and I do try to keep abreast of these things. So I want you to take a look at this as a resource. Now, you just might know your parents and just know something is off. What this site will also help you do is, well, how do you broach the subject, right? A lot of parents do not want to face the fact that their mental capacities are diminishing. So you have to be diplomat about it, right? And you have to find ways to preserve the independence of that older adult, but provide assistance and awareness. That's why it's important for an older adult who is at least self-aware to take the tests that are available, to make sure that they have the mental acuity to make decisions, or they feel like, again, there's a family member pressing them. And this is where I come across, Danny, that there are younger family members, more likely grandchildren, that go around, circumvent the parents and go to the grandparents for financial assistance. That's a situation that I get, and then I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, let's talk about this money you need to lend, or how we're going to make this decision properly, and how are we going to say no if it doesn't make sense. But what I'm trying to gear up for and listen to is whether the thought process makes sense. Thankfully, just like you probably do, I have a lot of older clients that will call me first and go through their financial rationale to either lend money or not. And I still find it's intact. But what I've learned on this website from the resources is the cues that maybe things are not right, so that maybe I have to call one of the adult children and say, listen, I can give your mom or dad this test if they're willing to. I can provide it to them and to you, who then might want to look at a mental health professional to take the next step. And I just think as people get older and are living alone, right? And Brent, you have your dad.
Yeah.
Still lives alone.
Mm-hmm.
Still mentally.
Recently widowed.
I know. Sorry about that.
He's doing really well for a gentleman in his situation.
But he stays active.
Oh yeah, we can never get him on the phone because he's out in the yard.
Out in the yard, he's got a wood shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
He behind me is this board, but he created the system that holds this thing up. I mean, he's constantly active. So I thought of Brent when I saw this website too, knowing that there's older people in his family. There's something there that he can look at. There are resources here that are available that you can complete a brief training, complete a family or friends questionnaire, get the results, talk to your parents about them. But I think as advisors and estate planners or accountants, as population ages, of course, our demographics obviously are not very good. We have to be aware of these cues, don't we, Danny?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is something that has such a negative impact on many when these types of events occur. And not only that, but I think that it diminishes your confidence in yourself when it happens. Then you start second guessing. And so if you can help protect the loved ones from these types of events, yeah, I mean, the more resources and tools you can arm yourself, I think the better.
Now, what's cool about this oldernesteggs.com, they have a hub for caregivers, which I really love. They keep track of all the fraud alerts of the latest scams targeting older adults. Scammers pretending to raise money for Ukraine. Gift card scams during the holidays. Romance scams among the elderly. Forget the loofah code at the villages. $800 million stolen from 100,000 Americans. There's helpful organization lists. So this family and friends resources for caregivers is instrumental for you if you are a caregiver or know a caregiver at olderadultnestegg.com. So hopefully you all find that helpful as you peruse the internet this weekend. Well, that's it for our Financial Fitness Friday. Lance back on Monday. Hope you all have an incredible weekend. We've got a lot of events coming up. April 1st, we'll be talking about it. We have a Lunch and Learn coming up. Stay tuned for that. You all be good, and thanks again for staying with us here on Financial Fitness Friday. Be good.